Hi there. Okay, so we are going into, let's see, month two. This will be our second workshop. All workshops are scaffolded off of the last one, so it's a continual spiral. We take what we're learning and we expand out each and every time. So those who continue to come to us have a concept, have kind of the prerequisite of what they'll need to move forward. And those who are new to us still can form a basis and a foundation of what we are continuing to learn. And the idea and the objective and the goal is really just to tie in oneself, one's connection to self, and then their connection to their community or whomever is in their family as well, right? And so we're always kind of tying in those connection as social emotional learning as we go into different subject matters, right? So this September 17th, I believe, most schools around Texas are teaching about the Constitution. And so we are not a school, but I do like to tie in those foundations into what we do as a way to stay aligned and grounded in our community and what our children are learning about and with everyone else, right? So I'll tie that into our workshops for our social studies. And the way that we go about it is we're going to talk about how we govern ourselves, and first how we make promises to ourselves and how we follow those and what our values are, right? And then we will bring that around to a bigger picture where we talk about, some more concepts of the Constitution, and we can talk about some of those facts, and then we can mirror how that aligns with them and their community, and maybe then we can tie in how we see that in action, right? So always anchoring in that middle mentor, those riverbanks so the child could flow, giving them the information that's available, the facts, what other students are learning around them in their schools, but also always tying it in back to self-reflection, even starting with the self-reflection first, talking about what their Constitution is. So this month, we're going to start there, right? We had Roots and Connection last month, and now it's Roots and Connection at a deeper level. So instead of just talking about identity through our name, we're going to talk about less static identity traits and more things that we want to become, like maybe a learner or somebody who's braver. We're going to talk about some people in history that attributed some of those identity traits and how. And we're actually going to start with women in history, and then we'll move to men in history. It doesn't really have to be men, women, and then men. That just happens to be how I'm doing it right now. And I'm gonna start with this specific book because it introduces their name, and we are going back to the name because we're doing the spiral. So if you go to month one workshop, we started with their name. And it was really just seeing how phonetically connected we were, seeing how connected they were with their name, and we'll even spiral out further, and they'll ask, like, what is the origin of their name? Where did they receive their name? Is there a story behind their name? So that'll tie in their family as well and get that dialogue started. Okay, so the book we're going to talk about today is She Persisted Around the World, 13 Women Who Changed History, written by Chelsea Clinton, illustrated by Alexandra Boyer. So we're going to go through their names because I really want to be intentional about the way that I present it, because the lesson we're going to tie to this is going to be, again, an activity. So it's instead of memorizing information, we're creating a lived experience. It's going to be directly tied to their name, and then we're going to make an acrostic poem where they'll use their name to tie in those traits that are going to be the people that they want to become, right? They want to become the learner. They want to become brave, or maybe they already have, right? They want to become the intellect. So yeah, we'll move into that after we read about them. So I'm going to paraphrase this a bit. I'll send you, there's a free audio version of this on YouTube. So I'll put the link below. But I'm just going to kind of show you how I might read it in the classroom. Or in our workshop space, I should say. That way you get an idea of how how we operate, especially. It's a beautiful book, but it can be kind of long for some of the creators I have come in, and since I don't always consistently see the same workshop kiddos, I have to be diligent and understand who I'm working with and how I'm working with them, and know that not everyone is on the same routine. So bear that in mind. So in memory of my grandmother Dorothy, whose persistence, curiosity, and love inspire me every day. And that's always what we talk about, is curiosity. And curiosity, I think, really is done through compassion and love, because instead of going to, you should do this, or we could do, we should be here, it's more like, well, let's get curious about it. Let's ask some more questions so we can really understand where they're coming from, or where you're coming from. It's just about understanding. To my daughter Vanessa, and to children everywhere around the precious globe. So the first few pictures, sometimes I'll start to ask the kids, like, oh my gosh, where are we? Where are we? Where are we going? And who do you see? Does anybody look like you? Do you recognize anybody? So I kind of start to ask them questions, so they're already engaged. They're inside the book. They're exploring. And then I'll talk, I let them know that this is going to be about different times in history. At different times in history, there were different movements or different things going on that asked for certain people to be braver or persist in different ways. Isn't there something that's happened in your life where you maybe had to be braver? Or is there something recently that's happened in our history that you felt like you had questions about? This is a good place to start talking about them. So this one's going to be about girls in history, and in certain countries, girls weren't able to go to school, or women might need permissions from their husband to leave or have a passport. And so today we're going to talk about that. And our first name we're going to look at, remember we're looking at names, is Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz. And she was very persistent. A quote from her is, "I don't study to know more, but to ignore less." What could that mean? What does it mean when we ignore? What does less mean or more mean? Let's look at her name. She grew up in Mexico. At this time, most girls did not go to school. But she really wanted to go to school. So she started reading and studying on her own. Has that ever happened to you before? You weren't quite sure if you could go do something, so you started to research it on your own. And researching at this age is just exploring, right? Maybe we want to know more about that bug down on the floor. Or we want to know more about where our name came from. Juana asked if she could go to school. And at that time, the answer was no. So she found tutors who didn't mind teaching her. And she also became a nun. So that would help her focus on her studies and her writing. And today, her poems and plays are still celebrated all over. And she has her first published argument for a woman's right to be educated in the Americas. There's all different ways we can persist. When we find that thing that we love, how can we pursue it? With compassion, with bravery. Our next name we're going to look at is Carolina Herschel. What do you think she does? Her quote, "However long we live, life is short, so I work." Her mother didn't think girls should be educated, but her father felt differently and taught her alongside her brothers. She thought she was very small. It says she was only, gosh, what does it say? I think 4 feet tall or something. So they thought that maybe she would have a job as a servant. But she felt differently. So she persisted. And she left Germany to live in England with her brother. Her and her brother supported each other. And they supported studies together, including math and astronomy. They studied the night sky, right? Sometimes it's less about even having the books available to us and just being with the sky, being with the things that we're interested in, getting curious about them and exploring them with the people we love. So they explored the sky together at night. And she became the first woman to discover a comet. And today, several of the comets she found bear her name. Isn't that cool? We'll do 2 more names, and then again, you can reach this book. I'll click the audio below. Katie Shepherd is going to be our next name. She began traveling through New Zealand. At this point in time, women were not yet voting. And we can talk more about what some of that means later. And that would be in some of the constitutional talk that's happening, tying into the community right now during September. So that's kind of cool. She really wanted to change this. She wanted to change this sphere that women could be in and out of. And so she really persisted. She became... I think New Zealand became the first country to grant all women the right to vote. And so due to her name, we could look at her name and say Kate. Which one of those letters could we attribute maybe identity to? Act of bravery maybe, or teaching, or educator, educator. Okay, and last one, we'll do Marie Curie. So I bet you could almost guess what she becomes. And then again, we'll use her name to find out some of her, a poem that we can make with her name based off of how she grew as a person. From a young girl who had a dream, persisted that dream, and grew into a scientist. She said, "Nothing in life is to be feared. It is only to be understood." So she grew up in Poland, and she was just a little girl, and she left her country to go to college, moved to France to pursue her dream of being a scientist. She worked in radioactivity, and she ended up becoming the first woman awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics. And a few years later, she actually won her second Nobel Prize in chemistry. She was the first person in the world to receive 2 Nobel Prizes. Right? So now we're actually going to do an activity where we look at your name, okay? And we're going to write your name down vertically on a portrait piece of paper. And then you're going to go over it with glue, okay? And then we're going to use red, white, and blue because we're going to, celebrate our Constitution that's being celebrated in September. And so we're going to use red, white, and blue to symbolize our flag. We've really been talking about symbols and what those mean to us. So we're going to tie that back in to some of these iconic symbols that we use in our country and how it maybe unifies us by association and by feeling at home or understood. We did end up getting a little bit of green in there. So I'll take you through this, right? We're going to do an acrostic poem, and each one of their letters we're going to turn into a deeper sense of self. So, right, instead of just Mishka, we'll say M could mean mathematician, right? If this is something he wants to grow into. I know this particular friend loves math, right? Maybe he wants to grow into an intellectual, somebody who has a lot of studies. I know this person really loves reading, or he might be a maker, actually. now that I think about it. Acts of kindness, so we can even just tie in some of our traits and our values and our promises to ourselves, how we constitute ourselves, into these two. So that's where we're going to go with that, and I'll show you a little example of that. And then after this, we'll do a body map, and that'll tie into our map atlas that we'll do later on in the week. The body map is, we're going to measure our friends, actually using rulers, because that's what we did in the previous month. And then when we measure, we'll lay down and we'll trace our body on these big sheets of paper, okay? And then when we trace our body, we're going to do a bilateral line. So we'll have the left side and the right side. We're still practicing that left and right when we created our maps last week. But now we're kind of doing a body mapping. So who we were will be the left side, and who we want to be will be the right side. And then we'll have a bridge in between that kind of talks about what we want to learn and some of the skill sets we want to gain to bridge some of these gaps, okay? Maybe not gaps, but to be the bridge. So we really want to hone in on these visuals, anchor in on these ideas so that they can explore them and live them out and have a better understanding of what it feels like in their body to be some of these things. I think some of the starkest contrast that adolescents run into in life is that they go into life and they haven't built that bridge because they haven't felt it in their body. They haven't lived any of this. And so they often fail because they just don't have the capacity to hold what it takes to grow into what it is that they are dreaming of. And so these ideas anchor in these feelings at a young age. It also gives them lived experience, so it's not so new when they are in the world and having to apply these skills. And I will talk about the research behind this in the next clip. This is the the middle mentor philosophy, and it's about those kiddos who fall through the gaps because maybe both parents are working, maybe English is their second language, and they have these concepts that are given to them and they just become a byproduct because they haven't lived anything personally, because they didn't have the safety structure or the social emotional role models growing up for whatever reason, right? And so they get lost. They don't have a sense of identity anchored in, and so they borrow some. And when we do that, it's okay. I think at some point we all try out different ideas to see what feels best, but sometimes we'll act something out that's not us for far too long, and then we get lost. And I think that's where we start to see these wide gaps that where we have these, patterns in society that some of these members can't get back up again. And then we kind of have these generational patterns where it repeats itself. And so with the mentor middle, when we apply these anywhere, any subject matter, in the schools, in the home, when I go do workshops for the teachers and stuff, we can give the students the tools no matter what their circumstances are, so that they can learn how to start, self-governing and anchoring in ideas themselves and feeling them out. So it's not so shocking once they actually have to apply them, because there does come a time. And if we practice this skill set enough of asking ourselves questions and not shaming ourselves when we get them wrong or making mistakes, and we normalize the emotions that come up, I believe that the students, the kids, will have a wider capacity of holding information and being able to apply actualized knowledge and make more informed decisions moving forward. And that's the whole idea. And that's why we're constantly building the bridge, and we're constantly doing the spiral, which is just, again, broadening the awareness of the same subject matter each time, so that they can they can internalize information and be authentic with their response when it comes out. And I think that just creates a more confident community member, a more curious community member, and one who can articulate where they are in life and make a decision from a confident place. And so we're really building a foundation early on, one that'll last a lifetime and not just be a temporary fix to because they couldn't handle an emotion or a problem, and so it has to come up later or repeat itself, right? This is a lifelong skill set. So again, I'll take another clip and we can have more research-backed information there, but we'll just move forward with some of the activities that we can now apply to kind of move forward with the Roots and Connection second month workshop. Her name did.
She was a teacher.
You think she was a teacher?
Yeah.
All right, let's see. While working in India as a young doctor focused on caring for women, Mary was in a terrible car crash and lost the use of her legs. Rather than quit medicine, she persisted and shifted her work to the kind of care she would give patients from her wheelchair, just as well as anyone could standing up. She focused on rehabilitation, working with people who had also lost the use of their legs or faced other challenges from accidents or illnesses. Mary founded the first functional rehabilitation center in India and is still helping patients today. So just because she's in a wheelchair, does that make her less of a doctor?
No.
No. Did it make her actually a better doctor and able to help other people because she had gotten sick and she knew how to deal with it?
Because she got sick and she knows how to deal with it.
So remember when you felt sad, and because you felt that sadness, you were actually able to help someone else who felt sad?
Yeah.
So when we look at her name, Mary, and we're going to make her acrostic poem, she became a doctor for women, so we could use her M to say, or her A to say action. She took action. We want your paper to be portrait. We want your name to come down this way, and then we're going to write adjectives that describe how you have grown as a person. So hold on. Okay, so we have the name written out, and then we're going to trace over it with glue, nice and steady, trying to keep a pretty even line. There we go, lift up. We try to keep the even line nice and thick, so we lay the salt on there, and then we put the red, white, and blue dye on there. There we go. Okay.
This one's a tricky one.
Is it? Yeah. I could see that. A lot of different lines. Yeah. All right, last one. Nice. All right. Okay. Ready? So we're going to pour. I wish I used my other salt for Play-Doh. What did you say? Oh, goodness gracious. Too salty. Okay. You really want a lot of salt. Okay. And look, now we're going to, okay. And then hold on. Pick up the paper on each side so that there's like a little tunnel. And then we can pour the salt back into the container.
Oh, can I have some in my mouth?
Let's pour it into a bowl. Okay, there we go. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add watercolor to this. We're going to watch it absorb it. And so your name can be red, white, and blue to represent some of the constitution work we're going to do in our workshop. And we can talk about how you have grown and what your values are and what your principles are and what your constitution is. And then we can talk about your country. So your first letter is M. What sound does that make? And what word could we use that starts with an M that describes you? Maker? Biologist?
Biologist.
That'd be a B. You definitely do like biology. What about an M? You like to make things.
Crafter.
A crafter. Okay, maybe we could go down to K. Crafting starts with a C, but if we do a K.
Craft.
Kind.
Kind.
Have you turned into a kind person?
Yeah.
Yeah, kind is with K.
Kind.
And a maker is kind of like a crafter. What do you think?
Maker, yeah.
Okay, you kind of want to get a lot of water on your brush because you're not gonna touch the brush onto the salt. You're gonna drip it. You're gonna drip it like that. Yes, there we go. Yeah, you see how it drips on?
Yeah.
There we go. M for Mishka, the maker. How's that sound?
Good.
Yeah. Red is a pretty fierce color, man. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to get a pipette, and then we can drip it on in a little bit different way. Okay. Let's get maybe a different brush. Okay. What color now?
Blue.
Okay. Get lots and lots and lots and lots of blue. Now, don't flick the brush like last time, okay? Just with all that water on it, you just want to kind of touch it gently. There you go. See? I think last time I said don't touch the salt. I was wrong. There you go, baby. You see?
Yeah.
All right. It's gorgeous. And then do you want to leave the S white? Maybe we should do, I don't know. What do you feel?
Oh, let me do something. Red, white, red, blue, and
You want to let's move to the H and make it red and see how that goes as far as our pattern is. Red, white, and blue. We have that. Now let's see. Remember, touch the salt gently. There we go. There we go. There we go. And you could also use a pipette. I have them, but this works fine. There we go.
now we do that one blue.
Okay, yeah. Looks gorgeous. And we can actually use the paint to create your words that describe your constitution for your
Get lots and
community.
lots and lots and lots of blue. I got lots and lots of blue. Tie, tie, tie.
There we go. We got the hang of it, didn't we?
Tie, tie, tie.
There we go. Gorgeous. Look at that spread out.
Color to these and make them whatever color we want.
Go ahead. Sounds good to me.
Actually, I'll add some gold. Wait.
Okay.
Ooh, gold.
Yeah, let's see what happens. Ooh, nice. All right.
Go, 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 go. Go, 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 go. There you go.
There we go. All right, and now for your values and your principles, we're going to write different words that represent Mishka, okay?
Can I get
And-
another salt?
And how you've grown, okay?
Can I get a taste of my salt?
Sure.